welcome NorCal Sports Network. Tonight we're going to be discussing the Kentucky Derby coming up this weekend, and we've got some horse experts. Guys, not me, but these other three guys, they live at the track, or used to. Anyway, we're going to get into this. Just below me is Terry Edson. Grew up being in the horse racing field with his dad and brother. And Terry was coaching at De La Salle. Are you still coaching there, Terry? Or
yeah, they brought me back out of retirement this year.
They brought you out of retirement. Okay.
Yeah, they might snag one more year out of me. Yeah.
Okay. So Terry was a long time defensive coordinator coach with Bob Lassiter, the head coach during De La Salle's, 151 was it?
151. That's correct.
151 consecutive win streak. Coached many players like DJ Williams that went on to star in the NFL and some other players. We'll get into some De La Salle football tonight later on. And then next to Terry is my brother Steve. And Steve's been into coaching, of course, at Diablo Valley College for 30 years. Or was it 30 you were there at DVC?
Yeah, but, Terry and I met in the early 80s at De La Salle because, we both were in our early 20s when we got hired there. And I was the head basketball coach there for 5 years before I moved on.
All right. So Steve's got a career in basketball, but also loves horse racing and been out at all over the country at different tracks, I believe. So him and Terry take a annual trip back to New York to what's the track you guys go to there? Saratoga?
Yeah, Saratoga.
Yes.
Saratoga. Okay. And then, of course, at the top there, Lou Marston, friend of the show, been following NorCal Sports Network for its inception and been a big contributor to the show. And Lou is got some horses he owns, some back in Kentucky, one down at Santa Anita in Southern California. And I believe, Lou, if I'm not mistaken, it was your dad that reopened Bay Meadows in 1947. Is that correct?
My grandfather.
I mean, your grandfather. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
your grandfather.
Grandfather, after the war, he needed the action, which is a word when horse bettors, we need the action. We do whatever we can. But yeah, him and a couple of buddies, Vern Winchell of Winchell's Donuts.
Yeah.
Got some money together and they reopened up Golden Gate Fields.
Oh, Golden Gate Fields. Okay.
Yeah. And people forget because Bay Meadows, it used to be at Tampere Shopping Center was the racetrack originally before they went to Bay Meadows. And then they had circuits. But yeah, Golden Gate Fields is what he reopened.
Yeah. And we got a message here from Robbie. He says, hello. He is Coach Carr, Percy Carr's former manager.
Yeah, of course. How we doing?
Yep. Yeah, Robbie is a friend of the show, been with us since the beginning, and he is also, I believe, he's an assistant with. Is it San Jose, Robbie? San Jose.
He's San Jose City.
Is that the one with the new baseball fields? San Jose City.
The whole deal.
Wow.
He worked for one of the greatest coaches in the history of California State junior college basketball, Percy Carr. He was with Percy for a long time. And how you doing, Robert?
So, all right. So, by the way, guys, Larry Kruger should join us within the hour at some point. He's finishing up a Little League game with his son, and he should join us a little later on. So let's get into this. Let's we got the Derby here. I have been meant to look a little more into it. How many horses are in the field this year?
20.
20, as usual, about 20. And I think I've heard, Terry, you've maybe already broken this race, broken it down?
Yes, I've looked at it. Of course, you don't know what the weather is going to be. On Saturday, it looked like it was going to be clear. Now they got thunderstorms, and you just don't know what the weather. weather's going to play a factor, it looks like, this year. So that makes a big difference.
I see, because some horses do better in the mud than others, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So
Don't forget Mind That Bird when he pulled that 50-1 shot in the mud.
Calvin Burrell.
And then Lou, have you are you going to the Derby?
I am. I'm leaving Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning. Okay. So
I just got back from Augusta when I, wrote the show, and now on for work again. But a little fun, it's a lot different when you go to a work event and you get to play the ponies. It's not like going to Augusta where, it's hard labor in my mind. The racetrack is just something different. If you're into it, if you own horses or you bet, it's never a bad day when you have to work at the racetrack or for an event like this.
Yeah. So now, where do you generally sit? Are you in the grandstands at the Derby, or are you up
so
in
the Derby,
club?
if no one's ever been there, it's hard to describe. In the last 10 years, they've really made it big. In fact, this year they've actually added stuff over the paddock to make it more unique. But, the only way to describe it, it's 170,000 people. So there's all different things. You have the infield, you have there, but usually I sit like in the 300 section. And what they've done at Churchill is now all the places that you sit include food and booze. So, of course, this year being 150th anniversary, be probably the biggest crowd they've ever had, depending on the weather. Terry brings up a great point because it looks like, I think 18 of the last 23 Oaks, which is the Friday, have rained. And usually the Derby, it's been good. But, with the crazy weather right now, with everything, it now looks like it might rain. So you got to sort of adjust your handicapping. But that racetrack itself has the greatest drainage system you've ever seen. They can get 2 feet of rain the night before, and then usually by the second race, their drainage system's so unique. I mean, it's almost like Augusta, where it becomes a fast track within, you get a little sun, third, fourth race, they're back normal. It's sort of a thing. But, it's happened in the past, but it's still, the biggest race there is. It's, it's not the most prestigious, but it's the most popular in the world. It's the Kentucky Derby. And of course, that means 3-year-olds. And it'll be the only time, unless the 3-year-olds get better, that they're actually going to run this distance. That's what makes it so unique. Half the horses shouldn't even be in the race, but they want to run, the owners and trainers, because of the prestige. It's the Derby.
Right. In the United States, in the world maybe, but in the United States, this is the race. Yeah.
I mean, I still think the Breeders' Cup's better, but, that's just me. But the Derby, everyone knows the Derby. And what makes it so unique is how big everyone bets on it. I mean, the pools are gigantic. I mean, the average payoff on a superfecta, when Rich Strike won, it was 275,000 was the super. The average trifecta pays 8,000. So except maybe Belmont card and the Breeders' Cup, this is the card where you want to be prepared, have a little money put aside, and when you get lucky, you're rewarded very generously.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Dan, so the super and try, that's picking the first 4 finishers. That's a superfecta, and that's $1. And if usually people play all 4 of them, they come in any order. That's like a $24 bet. And like Lou said, it paid, I don't know, like $275 or $320, something ridiculous. $320,000 off $24.
Now, when you guys bet, are you? I know you take the jockey into consideration, but how much does the jockey have play into consideration versus the horse itself?
Well, let me give you a football analogy. How much of a difference does a quarterback make in a football team?
Quite a bit.
Well, that's the jockey then.
Wow.
And the trainer's like,
so you can have the best horse, but if you got the wrong jockey on,
Well, this track too, his experience really counts in this race because nobody ever runs against 20 horses. It's most of these horses, the most they've run against is 10 to 12. The most they've run is 12. And so to put 20 and throwing like Lou said, 170,000. If you've been running at Aqueduct, you've been running in front of maybe 3,000 to 5,000 people, and now you got 170,000 people screaming, and it's loud. It's it gets real loud out there, and for these are only they're all 3-year-olds, and so
Right.
they're young horses. A lot of them are, have only had 3 to 5 races experience, so this is a whole new ball game for them. That all adds into the factoring in on how a horse is going to do in this race.
Wow. So who's the Leon and his Fierceness? Are those the 2 favorites?
Sierra Leone and Fierceness are the favorites right now. Right?
Okay. So, but the pole is that what they call it? Pole, right?
Post position.
Post. Okay. So 17, it looks like for Fierceness, but post for Leon is 2. So it's inside. That's ideal, right? 2, 3, 4, right in there. Is that more ideal on the inside than being on the outside?
Well, if you're a speed horse, maybe, but he comes from behind, so he's going to have a wall of horses. I mean, he's going to have to get lucky. There's no doubt about it, because horses that aren't on the Fierceness is on the pace and should be near the lead. So if he from the outside post, I think that's with a long stretch with a 1.25 miles, that plays into his favor if he's ready, because he's going to be, I don't know if he'll be on the lead, but he'll be close to the lead. And that's going to be, that's a huge field that keeps you out of trouble. Sierra Leone's a great horse, but he's going to have traffic issues to get through. And if anybody
not an ideal.
If anybody sees it differently, by all means, chime in.
But if you're kind of stuck in the pack and it's muddy, that's real trouble, because now you got mud in your face, right?
Definitely. I mean, if some of them don't like it and some of them never experienced, some may be okay. So it's not. It can have. That's one of the factors. Absolutely.
Now, what is the Derby? 1 mile and an eighth?
Mile and a quarter.
1.25 miles. Okay.
And nobody's gone that distance before. So
far. But then when they get to the Belmont, that's 1.5 miles, right?
Correct.
Jeez. So nobody goes 1.5 miles, right? I mean,
this year the Belmont, Terry, I don't think they're going 1.5 miles at Saratoga.
Yeah, 1 mile and 3/16.
Yeah, they're going 1 mile and 3/16. Yeah,
that's right.
Because they moved to Saratoga. I don't think it's not Belmont is a huge racetrack. Okay. I mean, huge. And Saratoga is not as big as Belmont. So I don't know. I think it's too tight of turns. Probably Lou, is that why?
Yeah, because you got to remember the racetrack at Belmont is actually 1.5 miles.
It is.
It's not a normal mile track.
Full circle.
So it's built for it, and then the Belmont's going to be at Saratoga for 3 years, because that's how long it's going to take for the grandstand to be complete. I mean, they're redoing everything at Belmont.
Well, let me ask you guys this then: if somebody wins the Triple Crown in the next 3 years, does that taint it a little bit?
No.
With the shorter track.
Well, it's going to be mentioned. It'll be mentioned,
but you still got
as an asterisk. It's kind of like the Dodgers World Series in 2020. It's an asterisk, right?
Yeah, I think the other thing is this year, we still have maybe the best horse. I don't know if you guys. I know Dan is Bob Baffert, who's probably the most famous trainer, has been banned from Churchill Downs, and he can't run. So his best horses aren't going to be coming to the Derby. So this Triple Crown, I think you might bring up a great point, Dan, is you're not going to have Baffert's best horses because he can't come. And then the Belmont isn't going to be run at the Belmont. It's going to be at Saratoga. But you got to remember, it's a lot easier said than done. There's only been a few horses that have won all 3. If you remember California Chrome, and one of their owners, he complained, said it would never, ever happen again. It takes a superior horse, because it's 3 races in 5 weeks.
Right.
And you got to have a horse that's a great athlete that can win at 3 different distances, 3 different tracks, and, a lot of times you're going to go 20 horses here. You know, you're probably going to have with Baffert, all his horses in the Preakness, probably going to be 14. And then, you know, at Saratoga, it's probably going to be 14, maybe 16 horses. I don't know the limit at Saratoga, but, you know, it's going to, if you get a horse that's going to win it, it might have an asterisk, but you're going to have a super horse, because I think it's tough enough with a great horse to win at 3, but this is going to be very unique.
Yeah, one of the advantages of the Preakness would be interesting. What Lou just mentioned is Bob Baffert will be able to run his horses in the Preakness.
Yeah, he ran at 6.
Usually the Preakness has lower fields because it's 2 weeks after the Derby.
Right.
But now the best horses, you're gonna get a bigger field. Now, depending on who wins the Derby and the Preakness, we'll see who gets scared off from going to Saratoga and the Belmont. You don't know, but there's a good chance that it's going to be 2 different horses from the Derby and the Preakness, so that's going to open it up for more horses, which is better in the sense of a horse player. It's better betting for the horse player. There's no doubt about it. More exciting for people that play the horses because they get.
And then Dan, I'll tell you. Oh, sorry. I tell you an interesting fact: the last 3 winners of the Derby have never won another race, which is very unique. You know, because it's these horses all get all primed up for the Derby, and then something seems to happen. You know, Mage, who won last year, never won another race, retired. Rich Strike 2 years ago, he actually got wasn't even in the field. He was an extra, and Lucas scratched his horse. Rich Strike won, never won another race again. So it's hard. I mean, imagine running 3 marathons in 2 weeks. You know, it takes a super horse to do it. And it's just been, you know, look at California Chrome. I mean, he was close. You know, he was a great horse. He was a better horse after his 3-year-old year, you know, but it's challenging because these guys, most of the trainers, you're prepping a horse. You might have maybe 2 races, get the horse top notch for the Derby. And that Derby, it's not the easiest thing. I mean, these horses, you know, it's like a gunfight at the corral. It's all about, you know, the best horse doesn't normally win, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's what's so unique, because being a bettor, it's the one time of the year where you're going to get a horse that, you know, you're talking about 2 horses, you know, the 2 and the 17. I personally am not going to bet Fierceness. He has not run back-to-back races. You know, he broke his maiden by, I think it was 12 lengths. He then ran bad. But I had him in the Breeders' Cup. You know, he was 17-1, so why not take him? But in a race like this, you know, it's so hard to do it because they have a system that it's hard, I guess is the best way to say it. So, you know, before we start talking about the Triple Crown, let's just talk about the Derby in step 1.
So let's hear from you guys. I mean, you guys have all looked at this race, been looking at previous races and know these horses. What would you, if you were helping people listening right now that want to maybe bet, give us are you going to bet a win play show? Are you going to do a trifecta? How do you place your bet? Give us your top choice, your winner, and then second and third.
Terry, why don't you start off?
Oh, God. Well, you know, one thing that interesting. What's interesting about this group too is that 20. You know, there's without getting too technical, there's a thing called a buyer speed rating. Dan, it kind of gives you the overall speed of the horse, and the higher number, the more speed your horse has. And 20 of the last 24 derbies, a horse has had a buyer of 100 or more going into the Derby. So 20 of the last 24 Derby winners has had a buyer of 100 or more. And there's only 2 horses in the field that have 100 buyer or more in their life right now. And that's Fierceness. And the horse that you might like, Dan, Mystic Dan is the name of the horse.
We got to go with that, man.
And if it's Mystic Dan has had and something else, I think that's got to be a big factor, I think, into this race. And when you're talking about, I'm not necessarily winning, but when Lou's talking about the exotics, meaning horses to come in first and second, it's called an exacta. First, second, and third's a trifecta. First, second, third, fourth, superfecta. I mean, that's where the money really comes in this race. in a 20 horse field because you get great odds. You got a lot of horses, so you got a lot of combinations. So the pool is split up way more than a smaller field. I mean, you can just do the math on that. So if you want, to make some money, you could bet a $6 trifecta, and you could end up, getting a couple $1,000. I mean, the kind of payouts you get in this, like I said, you could have bet a $24 superfecta with Rich Strike winning, and you'd have made, 275 grand, which is unbelievable.
Wow. Mystic Dan, 20-1, huh?
He's 20-1. And if it's muddy, I don't think he'll be 20-1. I think his odds will go way down because his 101 speed rating on the Buyers was in the mud. And he has run at Churchill Downs. It was only 5.5, but he had a 96 as a 2-year-old, which was the highest Buyer of any 2-year-old in this Derby.
Now, horse racing betting is a little different than betting like on a ball game where you might get odds, but you don't get the odds when you bet. Now you get the odds when they go off, right?
This is pari-mutuel betting, so the odds can change. So if you bet your horse and he's 10-1, and then when they get out of the gate he's 5-1, you get 5-1. It's not like sports betting. Whenever you got the number, whatever the point spread was, that's what you get. Period. Yeah. So your horse the odds can go up, the odds can go down.
Yeah.
Although when the race opens for betting, pretty much it's whatever the odds are, they pretty much stay pretty stable in this race.
Okay. All right.
And people, and by the way, Dan, because I've been to, and Lou knows this too, I've been to the Derby. All 170,000 people are betting long before the race starts. It's crazy. When I was there when Street Smart won, I think in 2007, every line betting that day, it was like 10, 15 minutes to make a bet for each race. Then a friend calls me like 8 minutes before the Derby and says, "Can you make a bet for me?" And I go, "I doubt it, but I'll try." And I go down there to make a bet, and there's absolutely no one in line 8 minutes before the post. It was crazy. It's like everyone's making their bets long before everyone wants to get their bets in. So
you mean it's not like when I've been to the Turf Club with you guys and Steve's running up to the booth at the last second trying to get his bet in?
That's because he's betting 9 tracks at once, and that's the problem. Yeah, so the odds are going to be, these odds are going to be pretty much when they're coming out for the race. Those odds I don't think will change all that much. So you'll get an idea. I don't think it's going to be a lot of movement.
Well, maybe I'll take Mystic Dan and I'll throw a ton on it. And if Mystic Dan wins, I'll buy a horse and name him Do Something Now, Farhan.
There you go. I thought Farhan did do something, and it's not working out so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's done like 5 different. How much money did they spend this year, Dan?
A lot of money, but
we can do that later, though.
Yeah, we'll do that later because I'll get into my.
So, like I said, I think so. Luce, the one thing that's disconcerting with Fierceness is he's never won 2 races in a row. He has a great race and he has a bad race. He just had his great race against the Florida Derby. I hadn't seen a horse win like that. If anybody's a racing fan, a couple years ago, there was a horse named Flightline that was just incredible. Won every race, it seemed like, by double digits. And he was one of the most impressive Florida Derbies ever seen. And that's a major prep race for this race. But he has never been able to put 2 in a row. He won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile by like 6 lengths. And,
he did not run in the Derby, though, right? Flightline did not run in the Derby.
No, he did not. He did not run in the Derby. That is correct. So, if he's ready to go, I mean, I don't. But like I said, low odds horses. I don't like betting favorites, and especially a 20 horse field. There's so many factors involved. So if you're looking for a long shot, or I think one of the horses that I really like in this race is Honor Marie is a long shot. Because she's done, he's done so well at Churchill Downs. He's had 3 starts at Churchill, 2 wins and a second. He also, we just ran. I think he lost by. Let me see how many lengths he lost by. the last time he ran. He ran in, trying to find him here. I'm looking at my form here real quick.
Yeah, Anna Marie lost to the 4-horse.
To catching freedom by a
right.
Yeah. So Anna Marie, Dan, see the way I look at it, here's a horse that Churchill Downs loves that track, and that track has got a little deeper. It's got some sand, and it's a little different surface. Not every horse likes the Churchill Downs surface, so I always take that into consideration. He's 20-1. He lost to Catching Freedom by a length at Fairgrounds. And Catching Freedom's 8-1. So I'm looking like the horse only lost by a length, and it's got way better odds, and he loves the track. So I think Anna Marie's got a shot. Like I said, if it's raining, I like Mystic Dan. And then the other horse that a lot of people are talking about did not work real great the other day, but Japan has been winning throughout the world, major races, and everyone's waiting for Japan to break through. In America, and the trainers won a couple of Breeder Cup races, so he knows how to win, and he's won big races internationally. And the horse's name is Forever Young. There's another Japanese horse, T.O. Password, that I'm not sure why he's only run 2 races. It looks like he might be a little overmatched in this race. Just Japan, it's the speed that kills him here in America, because our horses are built for speed, and they train them for speed, and it just has not done well. But the word is that if there's ever one that could do it, it's this one. So, but they still have to prove that they can win this race in America, and that's a big deal in Japan. They're trying to. This is a big race for them. They want to win. They have yet to win it yet.
So
they did really well in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, Dermot. Yeah, they do well in the Breeders' Cup, but they still have, as 3-year-olds, have not been able to break through here in America.
And Dan, Terry's horse he's talking about, Forever Young, has run 5 times, and he's won all 5.
Wow.
And he's 10-1 on the morning line, so he'll probably be 8-10, 8-12-1, which are good odds.
So you bet $10, you can win 100, huh?
Yeah.
That's not bad for a guy that's won 5. So is this a horse that wins 5 out of 5? And I've owned horses as far as for pets. All right. I had 2 quarter horses.
For pets, quarter horses for pets. That's a good call.
I don't know what you call them. I mean, they were in the backyard on the what do you call that? The pasture. Okay.
Yeah, that's a pet. You're correct.
Yeah.
Big backyard.
It was 5 acres, and it had a barn.
Kids on quarter horses, letting them ride on quarter horses.
Were they running as fast as
today?
They weren't going as fast as they could go.
It's crazy, but they were trained, and they did move fast at times. It freaked me out. I wouldn't get on them. I mean, hey, D-Shot, I did have 2 miniature horses too. I had 2 minis, and I had 2 quarters. One of
should have stayed with the minis.
Well, the question I have is, these horses are really smart. I mean, I used to call Bingo up. That was one of the name, and he'd come up and he'd just pet, move his head right into you just like a dog would. He was just so friendly. But my question is, when a horse wins 5 out of 5, does that horse have what they call an athlete has dog in them? Do they have that desire that if they're chasing somebody, like, dang, I want to catch that horse, I'm not going to lose? Or is that a mentality that these horses have?
Ask Lou. Lou's owned enough horses. He could tell you about that. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's all about confidence. These horses know. It's amazing. You'll see a horse that looks like he's fallen asleep in the paddock, and then once he takes 1 step on the track, a light bulb goes off. Like, he knows it's game time. Now, that, Dan, you're talking about a horse who's 5 for 5, but he's never run in the United States. Different track, different surface. It's amazing. And that's why the Derby is so unique. You have horses from all over the world coming to one place I think, he brings up a great point, Terry, that if you run over Churchill Downs, it is an advantage because at least your horse can actually run on it. But it all really comes down to trips. You have 20 horses. Fierceness last race was impressive, but it was like a workout. Nobody went out with him. He had everything his own way. Now he's going to have 3 or 4 horses on the lead. Is he going to be able to come off? Can he make the distance? And Terry, you bring up Fierceness. Are you going to bet him at 9-5, 2-1, or 5-2?
No, I never bet anybody at 9-5 or 2-1.
That's why I think, this is a race where so many people are familiar with Fierceness and Sierra Leone. If you pick anybody else, you're going to get 9-10-1. Maybe, you got a horse from Santa Anita who's starting to get better. He's probably going to be 30-1. It just really depends on who you think. It's all about their competition. Dan, how we always bring up the Giants have nobody in the farm system. They hit AAA great. They pitched AAA, but this is the major league. It's a different game. And you have, people coming from all over. You brought up the jockeys. The jockeys are important. Their job is actually make sure the horse has a chance to win, but it doesn't always happen like that in 20 horse races. That's why the Derby is so unique and special every year. It's every year there's like, oh my God, how did that horse win? And if you look over the past years, it's all about the trip.
I always like to bet the 50 to 75-1 guys just for the heck of it. Throw a couple bucks on them.
Well, in this race, it's a better idea. And there's certain kind of races where long shots have a tendency to come in more than other races. But this is a race where, it's been proven, last Rich Strike won the longest shot on the board. I mean, it's because of all the factors, the distance of the race, how the race is going to play out. If Fierceness, gets to the lead and he's running a quarter mile in 24 seconds and runs the half in 48, the race is going to be over. He's going to smoke everybody. But if there's a lot of speed and he's in a speed duel with these other horses, that's going to set it up for horses to come out of it. But then the horses that come out of it got to, they got to manage a decent trip so they can make their run at the end.
Now, a lot of these races I've seen in the past where, the trainer has 3 horses, okay, in the same race. Does some of them say, okay, let's say the owner that has Sierra Leone also has 2 other horses, and he says, I can't beat Fierceness in a speed race, so I'm going to send one of these other horses kind of like just to set the pace to burn them out. So does that happen?
Not usually if it's a different owner. If it's the same owner,
okay.
you might send the rabbit out and say, like, we're going to set it up for the other one, but that could be a strategy. But there, I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Different owners.
It's at least 50 grand to get in this race. It might be more. I know it's 20. It's at least 50 to get in the race. So, people aren't spending all this money on these horses to be sent out as a rabbit in the biggest race of the year. No, I don't think they're doing that unless, like I said, if they own 2 horses in the race, I could see that as being a possibility.
Okay.
I don't know, what do you think, Lou, as an owner? Would you want to have your horse
I
be a
think,
rabbit?
Dan, here's the situation. The trainer's going to tell the owner what he wants to hear. That necessarily might not be the truth. He's going to tell the jockey, hey, listen, this horse, I need him to go maybe lay 3rd or 4th and make one big run. Then he'll have another horse saying, hey, listen, make sure you don't get in a speed duel. So why don't you basically get out there, make sure you're going good, and wait till the final turn and get a good trip and then try to see what you can do. And then you might have a horse that comes from dead last. That's the easiest thing. Just make sure you break, stay on the rail, and just make sure, get a good thing. Make sure you give us a chance, and make sure when you close like a freight train, we're going to win it. And, of course, you're going to tell that to all the owners. Now, after the race, that's where the trainer's got to say, oh, God, it just didn't work out. We tried something out of its element. You got to come up with 2 excuses. Unless you're going to have a race where all 3 win and you have a triple dead heat, no matter what, you're going to have two people that are going to be disappointed.
Yeah, it's no doubt about it. And my brother and trainers, they must have given them a secret book about how excuses to use after race is over, because they'll come up with a million of them. I just always say, like, it just looked like he was too slow to me, but yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think, Dan, the one thing about this race is there's 20 horses. You could probably take 8 out. You can look and say these horses don't figure. So then you handicap instead of 20, now you're handicapping 12. And then that's where, you could sort of go around. I mean, I think Terry brought up a great point. A great bet in this is a thing called the exacta. So say if you have 12, you can maybe try to work it down to 8, right? You then can do a box, all 8, and that'd be 8 times 7, $56. You have a dollar exacta with 8 horses, and they can come in any of the order. Of those 8 horses, cost $56, usually an exacta, especially if you get a good prices, you can pay $200 up to $1,000, depending on who you have.
Wow.
But you have 8 horses, all they got to do is finish an order, and then you get the dollar exacta. And this is the one race where with such a big field, it's okay to bet small. You just want to bet and you want to cash, because it's no fun if you go for it and you lose. Bet small and try to win big.
Okay, interesting. Now you've been down at Santa Anita. It's interesting. I have a client who's been a client of mine for 15 years in Arizona. Now he's up in Utah, but his son was a trainer at Santa Anita. Jeff Mullins.
Oh yeah,
he still trains.
Okay.
He started in quarter horses.
Okay.
And he's back. He usually he actually sits one box in front of me down at Del Mar with his kids. He is in great shape and a super good guy. He's been Mullins originally was from Arizona, did the quarter horse scene, and he's been doing thoroughbreds probably for 10, 15 years. Very successful, super nice guy, and he's always with his son.
Interesting.
At the track. Small world. But that's
small world. Yeah. His dad
running to everybody, it seems.
His dad sometimes would call me and give me a tip. Like so, but
here's a tip. Don't take tips from horse people.
What do we got you guys on for?
I'm talking about more like the trainers and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I've been stiffed by my brother so many times. It's been incredible.
Hey, likewise.
So Terry, are you going to go all in with fierceness then, depending on the odds, keying them and everything?
Like I said, I haven't decided yet, because I got to see how the weather is, how the track's running that day. I'm pretty sure speed's holding up. There's some factors, but if it's raining for sure, I'm putting Mystic Dan in my exotics for sure. Oh, and that's the horse I think is got a huge advantage if it's wet.
Interesting. So we talked a little bit about Santa Anita. The last, I don't know whether seems like it's been about 2 to 3 years that I recall that a lot of horses were just dying down at Santa Anita. Did they ever figure out what that was from, or was that just guessing what they thought it was?
No, I think it was the track because it was a terrible winter. And that's why you see Santa Anita now when it's raining, they don't run. They cancel racing matter of fact, Steve and I had two trips planned to Santa Anita twice now. We've the first one, it was going to rain and they canceled racing. Then we picked a different date and it rained again and they canceled again. Yeah, so now we're trying to go in May. It hardly ever rains.
Hardly ever rains in Southern California.
But they're like canceling for the weekend now because that was the issue. It was a big rainy and it caused issues. It caused issues at Saratoga last summer too.
What is it? Is the track gets too soft, or is it?
Hey Dan. One thing is the horse with the way you say it, horse players hate that. All right, horses didn't just die; they broke down during workouts. The majority of them were workouts during the morning, not like during a race, you know. And the other thing too is they had a brand new soil that they got from a different part of the United States. And then the winters were brutal and it just didn't mix well. So
Right.
it took a little time to figure out. Right now, if you notice, you haven't heard anything
No,
in the last couple of years.
I
In
know.
fact,
I mean,
PETA hasn't been around. If they have any problems, they should have been at Churchill or Keeneland, but you know, they don't say anything. It's all just about California. But yeah,
Right.
you have a problem.
right.
But
Golden
we
Gate, you know,
resolved it.
yeah, same thing at Golden Gate. One horse has an unfortunate accident, it becomes headlines in the news. It's like
Correct.
nothing's happened in 3 months. I mean, if people really understood, people like Lou and Steve and myself that have been around the horses and all that, there's absolutely no way. People love these animals. They are treated like the trainers, it's their family.
And they're highly invested
Yeah.
financially.
I mean, it's 7 days a week. You're getting up at 4:00 in the morning every day. I mean, no one wants to. It's not like, oh, another horse. No, it's crushing to everybody when this happens.
What
And
was
no
that one
wants to
horse
see it.
that died in one of the Triple Crown races? Was it Barbaro? Or
Barbaro,
That
yeah,
was the
yeah.
Preakness. He didn't die in the
Preakness.
race. He
He-
died
yeah.
after the race.
Yeah,
After
but I
the
mean,
race, yeah.
he they put him, they euthanized him basically, right? I mean,
But the
Well,
owners
they tried to keep him. They tried. He just
for
couldn't.
9 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, was that? Yeah, that was tragic. I tell you, I know what it's like. I had a horse. My horse Bingo, which I love that horse. I watched him drop dead. He got, and we used to deworm him all the time, and he literally started jumping and he collapsed, and it was awful because 1,300-pound animal, and they had to come, someone haul him away. It was just watching it from my office window upstairs. I had a view of my pasture from my house, and I looked outside and I saw him, and it was just like, what the heck? They said he probably got his intestines tied up or something. And man, it's
Well, let's switch to some funny stories. Okay.
Hey, can I ask a question? There's a question I wanted to ask.
Brother's show here.
Hold on, Steve, he wants to ask a question here. What do you got?
You guys are talking about factors, and I know nothing about this, but I just want to find out kind of maybe the psychology. I'm guessing that horses have a psychology just like us when we're competing. Do certain horses, are they better when they're like trailing and there's a horse ahead of them? Does it motivate them to want to do better? Or do some horses do better when they're out in front and it's just an open lane for them to go? Is there something to that with horses?
Yes.
Well, here's
That's
the thing.
absolutely correct. If some like to be out in front and some like to and come from behind. There's no doubt about it. Go on, Steve.
Well, most horses really have their top speed on the track for about 3/8 of a mile. And so, if they burn that 3/8 of a mile or a good percentage of it early on in the races, and the races are different lengths. 1 mile is 8 furlongs. 1/8 of a mile is a furlong. So 3/8 of a mile at top speed is usually where they will begin to, not the great horses. I mean, the greatest horses of all, but the average horse that runs every day at tracks across America usually have a top speed or top effort at about 3/8. And so it's up to the jockey to decide and the trainer to decide how they're going to use that high level of energy. Are they going to use it early and try and hang on? Or a lot of times are they going to mid-pack or towards the back, and then in the last 3/8 of a mile of the race, they're going to go. So it's strategic, and it's also the type of horse it is. It's not so much, it could be their mentality, I'm sure it is, but a lot of it is how they're trained and how they're run by the jockey.
And some of them, how they're bred, if they're bred for speed. And there's a lot of factors. There's definitely horses in this race that are going to want the lead. They're speed horses. And if you try to take a speed horse and hold them back, they usually don't react to that very well. If they want to go, you got to let a horse do what a horse does. I've seen it time and time again where you try to get cute with your horse. You got to let the horse do what it does best. I think it's like changing an athlete. You have an athlete like a quarterback and or a pitcher, and you try to change their motion after they've been doing the same thing forever. That doesn't really, you got to let athletes, like trying to change Jim Furyk's swing in golf or something like that. That's what he does. And so if horses, they have their way they like to run. And I just don't think you mess with it. So there's going to be horses, they're going to go the lead. That's what they do. Can they hang on? That'll depend on how many other horses are next to them and wear them out. It's like track and field. It's no different than distance races and track and field, right? You got guys that go to the front. If no one runs with them, they get bold. They run away with it. It happens in horse racing all the time. But if they get pushed, then
now I've watched races. Not nearly as many as you guys, but sometimes you can see a race where the jockey's holding the horse back and he's waiting to give him his final push, and he waits just too long, and he never. Is that what you were saying when that horse wants to? I mean, there's a fine line, right? Between holding them back and preserving some energy for the stretch versus when that horse is held back too long, he doesn't have enough left in him. And I mean, I've heard of a lot of jockeys, but who's the top 3 jockeys in the sport right now? And I'm sure that can differ.
America, right? Well,
yeah.
I mean, you got to have Javier Castellano was Jockey of the Year last year. He won the Kentucky Derby, and he won the Belmont, and
the Ortiz brothers.
The Ortiz brothers, Irad is making a lot of money, and I think Fabian Pratt is really in the top 5. And Joel Rosario, who just went into the Hall of Fame in his last election, has been great for a long time. But there's a lot of great jockeys, and I think that New York probably has the best colony. Jockeys will stay in areas. I mean, Southern California with Santa Anita, Del Mar, they'll have their colony or their common group. Kentucky will have their group. Florida will have their group. New Orleans, Fairgrounds, and then of course New York. And even Northern California has their colony. So jockeys.
Well, speaking of Northern California and Golden Gate Fields, I understand June, is it 8th is the final day?
June 9th
after the Belmont.
June 9th. That is it for Northern California Bay Area racing, right? I guess you still have the
no, Pleasanton got the Golden Gate dates in the fall.
Really?
So they're gonna run from Pleasanton in October through December.
The fairgrounds, right? Isn't that the fairgrounds out there?
Yeah. It'll get just as many people as Golden Gate got.
But Golden Gate had that,
and it's different surface.
Golden Gate had that beautiful
different surface and no turf, right? That's gonna hurt. Yeah, in the fall. Yeah.
You had that beautiful view of Golden Gate, though, the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
From the men's bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, the same owner of Golden Gate owns Santa Anita, and they're trying to boost the population at Santa Anita. That's why they're closing Golden Gate.
Wow. I mean, so Bay Meadows closed years ago. Now Golden Gate, and now it's just going to be Pleasanton at the fairgrounds. And then does Sacramento have anything with
Sacramento has a fair meet, Santa Rosa has a fair meet, Fresno has a fair meet, Humboldt's got a fair meet. And Pleasanton.
Wow. That's a shame that nothing's gonna, as big of a market as the Bay Area is, doesn't have a top racing. And do you think they'll ever build a new track, a first class track, or you think that's it for the Bay Area?
If they tear down Golden Gate, they tore down Bay Meadows, right, Lou? It's gone. It's now condominiums or a strip mall. And I think the property in Albany is pretty valuable.
Yeah, but I heard they're going to make it into a park or something like that.
Some kind of, that'd be good.
Yeah, they're not going to turn it into condos, which would go for millions of dollars with that view. But that's what I understand. We'll see.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Dan, the big problem too is in California, the electoral vote, they tried to make it so gambling was legal, and it wasn't even close. I mean, it was like 30 to 70% it lost. You know, and you see, and the way the racetrack's set up, it's perfect for betting like a casino. So, like, you have a racetrack in New Jersey, right? And they literally started betting sports, and they made $32 million the first month. You know, during the bowl games, they made $60 million. But, you know, we're in California where, you know, they just don't see the logic. You know, they'd rather just take care of non-citizens, I guess the best way to say it. It's, you know, it's horrible. No horse racing at all. And, you know, the big problem, too, is you got to remember, A's are gone. The Niners are down in Santa Clara. You know, you have the Giants are the only game in town in the Bay One
Well, you got the Warriors. You got the Warriors there, too.
But, you know, it's NBA. It's nobody cares. You know, it's just one of those things. But there's no competition, which even makes it tougher. You know, I mean,
right.
I don't know what they're going to do. And the other thing, too, is, you know, in the 80s and, you know, 80s, you know, before you could bet online, you'd get people on the weekend. I mean, when they had a horse called Lost in the Fog running at Golden Gate, and he ran, they'd get 12,000. When they used to run at Bay Meadows, they used to have Friday nights, dollar beers. They'd get 7,500, 10,000 people there on the weekends. You know, nowadays, the problem is, too, is either the wealth has died and the young youth don't gamble on horse racing. They're all about, you know, betting football games, betting prop bets, betting that. Horse racing, you know, needs a big lift. I don't know what the answer is, but, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, when you're a horse racing fan, when you go live, it's enjoyable, you know, but the problem is they don't advertise in the sports page. We don't even have a sports page anymore. I mean, if you weren't on the North Cal Sports Network, you probably wouldn't even know Golden Gate's closing. It's so bad on the Golden Gate billboard when you drive down 80, it doesn't even work. So you don't know if they're closing. You know, I went there on Saturday. They had no advertisement for the Kentucky Derby. Wow. You know, we used to have a TV show, KCBS, which was a news radio show, which do the stretch calls. You had the sports screen that would actually show you the entries and who won. You know, nowadays.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
To find.
I remember this is a funny story. I was in 7th grade. I won't name my teacher because I don't want to incriminate him, but he used to take our money and go to the tracks and he'd bet on horses for us. 7th and 8th grade. You remember Hank, right, Steve?
Yeah.
I didn't say his last name.
No, you're good. Hey, Lou, I got to tell you a great story. So Terry is really, really thorough in his handicapping. His ability to read the form is as good as, you know, you and anybody. In fact, I always say they should have him on TVG because he's got the personality too and the knowledge. But one year we were doing this contest to go back to the Kentucky Derby. It was on TVG, and all of the, you know, Louisiana Derby, Florida Derby, Wood Memorial, all the races we would play week by week, trying to win the trip to Kentucky for 2 and at $10,000. They did it one year in TVG. It was the year Chrome won. So Terry thoroughly knew all 20 horses. So that weekend we usually just would go to the Golden Gate Fields with his dad in the turf club, but he had to go back to Pittsburgh to visit his daughters that were in college. So he gives me the 4 horses to bet on the exacta, the trifecta. And so I'm sitting there, you know, waiting for the Kentucky Derby. And I think, you know what, I'm going to do something. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to wheel a superfecta to Chrome. And I'm going to take the other 3 horses and I'll just box them underneath. And it's only a $6 bet for a $1, you know, $1 play. Instead of boxing all 4 for $24, I'm going to just say, I'm going to take the winner. And so right about a few minutes before I'm going to put the bet in, I start reading a couple things and Gary Stevens' horse. And so I take one of the 4 horses out and I put Stevens' horse in there. So sure enough, the race comes back and all 4 horses that he picked came in first, second, third, and fourth. But I subbed one out. And the superfecta on the $1 paid $7,800. I did a $3 superfecta wheel for $18 that would have paid $23,000. And I took one of his horses out. And that he always, anytime I get lucky on a bet, he reminds me, yeah, but you lost $23,000 when you pulled my horse.
And that won't be the last time.
I know.
That's happened many times to all of us.
Of course. Hey, Lou, I was going to ask you, how do you like Frank Miramani?
I think down at Santa Anita, I think we were so spoiled. Where I'm a huge Trevor Denman fan. I think what makes Del Mar great, just their spring meet, not the fall meet, is hearing him, the excitement. I still think Frank, I knew him from the fairs. I think he's gotten better because I don't think he bets anymore, the horses. I mean, he used to bet while he was, gambling during the races, and he knew who he had. It'd be amazing. Here's a horse that's 30 to 1. Oh, he just misses. That nobody cared about. Just give me the winner because that's probably his horse. But, I think for Santa Anita, the way they sort of did it, I didn't like because I think the guy from Los Alamitos originally had it, because they sort of wanted to do that sort of European, Australian announcer.
Yeah, Michael Rona. Yeah.
Michael Rona. I think he had the job, and then they promised it to Frank. Sort of like Golden Gate, we lost a young kid, to Oakland because they're cheap. We got him from Seattle. I think, the one thing about horse racing is you got to get the youth somehow in, and, I think Frank's good, but I'd love to get, someone a little bit younger where, he can start going. I mean, I don't want the girl from Parks. Trust me.
No.
I think she's a disaster. They tried something and I would never bring her back. But I think most importantly is, if you get somebody that can do the job, then I'll be happy with him. I just think, for Frank, I like other announcers, and I think, we're great to have them, but I think there's other people that might be better because it is the great race place.
Yeah.
Santa Anita is a great race place. I want the best. And, I think he's maybe third or fourth best. That's just me, but
no, I understand. I mean, he's back in Saratoga, and when Terry and I went back there last year, it was his first summer, and I started asking people because we were sitting in the grandstands for 3 days, and of course Saratoga people come from all over the place, but a lot of them are regulars, and they were excited about having him there at Saratoga.
And look who they had before.
Yeah, and then he would get out early. A couple hours. There's so much going on at Saratoga with the picnic area and everything. And he would go out and mingle with the fans. And I think he's doing really well back there. But to be the race caller at Santa Anita and the race caller at Saratoga is really impressive. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Who was the big guy that was at Saratoga before?
Tom Durkin.
Oh, Tom
Durkin was there for a long time.
He does the call on NBC, right? Mostly.
He doesn't call anymore. Well, once in a while they'll bring him back. Yeah.
But
that's a real art, though. To
be able to does all.
I thought Steve was going to say John Embryol, and that was the one before.
Everybody back there in New York loves John Embryol. We know that from talking to Garrity and everything.
Yeah.
And he was a fill-in. He was always a Durkin's backup. And he would take a race every once in a while and give Durkin a day off. But the thing that people don't realize, so many great announcers and jockeys started at Golden Gate Fields.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Larry Colmus was there, and of course, you were talking about Denman going through, but there's, and then in Miramani spent some time. Frank started out in the Northern California fairs, and he was.
People forget Trevor Denman worked at Golden Gate.
Did he really?
He did.
Is that the
He
guy that
was Golden
goes
Gate.
racing?
And then he actually, it's funny, probably the greatest race call and the greatest Triple Crown race that I ever saw in my time was Easy Goer and Sunday Silence. And he would go from Golden Gate, and then he went to Pimlico because they would close.
Right.
He went to Pimlico, and in that race, you had Johnson do the ABC call, but at the track, and you can find it on YouTube, Trevor is doing the call of Easy Goer and Sunday Silence, where they're biting each other, they're going down. I mean, it's an incredible call. But I agree. I mean, even Harry Henderson, who was at Hollywood, used to fill in, would also go to Bay Meadows.
Oh, that closed years ago, right? Hollywood Park.
They go.
They used to. Harry Henson I used to watch him on Saturday and have the Hollywood Park feature on on TV. Yeah, back in the day.
Hollywood Park, isn't that where the Rams built their new SoFi? Somewhere around there? Yeah.
You are correct, sir.
You're correct.
Okay. All right. So
Dan, you have in Terry and Lou. I mean, I'm just a player. I'm not, I have only been a fan of horse racing through Terry for the last 20 years. But in Terry and Lou, you have really, really knowledgeable people in the racing business. These guys go back, Terry obviously his whole life, Lou I'm sure, and so Lou, give me some of the races that you have just always remembered, no matter where they were at.
I went with my dad growing up to probably 20 straight Santa Anita handicaps, and if we all saw the movie Seabiscuit, that Santa Anita handicap was the first $100,000 race back in the 40s, which was unheard of. And the excitement, I'll never forget when Ferdinand ran against a horse called Snow Chief. Both horses were 3-year-olds. The following year, they turned 4. And this is before they had off-track wagering. It was so crowded at Santa Anita that they have the track itself, it's a mile track, and then they have a chute, which basically is an extra furlong. They needed parking. There was no parking. So they actually, when the 5th race ran, they actually parked on the race, the 7 furlong chute. There was 76,000. And it was the first time I'd ever seen, if you remember, they didn't have 100,000 on the billboard for betting. So the top win price was blank, which I'd never seen before. And it was just something. And the other thing, too, is back then, this is before Shoemaker, unfortunately, got paralyzed. You had these jockeys were like superstars. It was incredible. But, it was the first time that each horse, Snow Chief and Ferdinand, had $500,000 bet to win. I'd never seen that much money. And the excitement of Trevor Denman, neither horse won, by the way. A horse from the East Coast won. But just the way Trevor got everyone excited for the races, the way the race turned out, and, this is the Santa Anita handicap, which was referred to as the Big Cap, which was also the first $1 million race before the Arlington Million. I got goosebumps, and this is where I maybe bet $5 back then. I didn't have much money. It was in the early 80s, but, I'm there with my dad, movie stars everywhere. Right. So to me, the Big Cap is still pretty precious. I think Del Mar, we had a horse that won the sprint, the Ben Crosby 2 years in a row. And we also won the turf race. And I think, it's funny when you're an owner, you have so many highs. I was sort of spoiled where in about a 4-year period, we had 2 horses running the Breeders' Cup, which is sort of unheard of. We're just small time people. We ran 3rd and 5th, but being part of it was exciting.
Oh, yes.
I think probably still the greatest sporting event I've ever been to, beside the catch, was probably Zenyatta when she beat the boys in the Breeders' Cup. Again, it was at Santa Anita. Yep. It was so unique where you literally had 60,000 people jumping up where it was like an earthquake. and seeing Zenyatta do it, hearing Trevor's call, to me, I think what makes horse racing is you can see a race and it still affects you like it just happened. I mean, you watch Zenyatta and they're talking about it, you can't turn the channel. You want to see what happens. And I think that's one thing about horse racing really needs is we don't really have that superstar. Zenyatta was great. California was great. The Chrome was great. But, when you look back, when we had Sunday Silence and Easy Goers, East Coast against West Coast. The Breeders' Cup, when you had that horse that was a claimer that Nakatani won.
Lava Man.
It was East Coast against West Coast. It's like, if we ever had the Giants and the Yankees in the World Series, it'd be the most watched World Series of all time. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that. I think I've been pretty fortunate where I also went to the Arlington Million 5 straight years, which was sort of cool, a beautiful track.
Yeah. I got to go to that once with my brother.
Yeah.
As a representative of Santa Anita. That was great. Yeah.
And then the other thing is, if you guys have never been to Oakland, Saratoga is great. When I go back, I actually stay at the Saratoga Casino. So out of the backyard is the harness track.
Oh, yeah.
But, I think Oakland, what they do is they have a thing called the Festival of the South, where for 4 days, the whole town shuts down. It's like how Saratoga is in the mornings. Everyone's there for the races. They shut down the whole entire area. All you see is horse racing. Everyone talks about it. The track is great. So I don't know. I think probably the Zenyatta was a great race. The big caps are always fun to me. Opening day at Del Mar, it's sort of like Saratoga. I mean, I have so many great memories because down at Del Mar, I hit the first pick 5 they ever did there. And there was so much confusion because the pick 5 was on the East Coast. Del Mar said we're going to do it. I was excited because I was like 6 deep the last leg. One of our singles came in, and they didn't know that they didn't even have the right payoff. So they had the $2 payoffs on the screen. We had the 50-cent one. Down the stretch, we're between 2 horses. It's going to pay either $120,000 or $86,000, but that was the $2 payoff. They didn't figure it out. We still won 20 grand.
Yep.
But, more important that day is we had a horse that won the opening day feature. And to me, running down at Del Mar, where you just turn around, you have 20, 30,000 fans. I've never had a horse win at Saratoga, but at Del Mar, boy, you win. You go to the thing called the Champagne Room. You walk around with a big, and you're the man for the whole town. It's just, one of those.
Wow. Now I got something interesting for you. I want to ask you guys. You mentioned 60,000 people screaming and excitement, and you get races there where there's 80 to 100,000 people. And, people are having a good time. Most of the people have made a wager. That's why they're there. I did an MLB survey. They sent me an email last night. And what was interesting, it was about a 12-minute survey. And a lot of the questions were about the game and the future. And there was some gambling questions from MLB. And I think they're looking at, trying to figure a way to get more people interested. Do you think that there could be a day where MLB tries to have, like betting on site for maybe what happens in this, like slots, or just trying to bring in more people? Because, you go to the Oakland Coliseum, there's 2,000-3,000 people there. I mean, that's because the A's are leaving. But the Giants on a weeknight, Lou, you got season tickets there. Yeah. There's maybe 12,000 people, and they announced 20, but there's only 12 there.
So you're talking about sort of what they do for the Raiders, right? Where they actually have betting machines in game at Allegiant Stadium.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're aware of that.
Baseball could do something.
And then the other thing too is if you watch any of the playoff NHL or that, FanDuel's showing the odds. You go on ESPN now, they have ESPN Bet where they're telling you the odds. First half game, they have in-game odds to make sure you can go on because, I just think, baseball really doesn't do that. I mean, yeah, we know about the over and under run scored, but once the game starts, it sort of is like on the hush hush. Dan, I don't know. It just really depends who's really sponsoring it. FanDuel, or you get someone like Barstool Sports that has their own gambling now where they're, maybe they can sponsor the MLB and you can bet. But, I just don't know. I think the big problem is baseball is 162 games, 162 games in a year. The other major sports aren't. College football's 12. The NFL right now is 17. Everybody wants your money, but it's so hard to, you go to a Giant game now. I mean, they're so desperate to get people, but when you go to the game, you're already out 120, almost 160 bucks just for two people, just for tickets and parking. I don't know if gambling's going to work, but you got to remember it's 162 games, compared to football being 17. And out of the 17, you only have 8 at your facility. The rest are going to be 8 or 9. So I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think, Terry and Steve? Does that make sense, or do you think there's a way where?
I think it can all. I think that's one of the issues. like in New Jersey, they have like a sports book right outside their basketball or right inside the sports, inside their arena and all that. It just adds to it. I mean, part of the problem in California is they won't legalize gambling. Simply, one of the reasons is because of the tribal casinos and the card rooms are putting big lobbying money against it. That's part of the issue. Is like if you put a casino at Golden Gate, which would be a perfect spot, like slot machines, and you put sports betting in there, you'd revise that area.
The whole area.
You'd revise horse racing and all that, but. Because the purses would go up, Dan. That's the main thing.
Wow.
Purses attract people and trainers and people.
I don't understand the whole thing with California. They have the lotto. I mean,
what about day trading? How's that not gambling?
Yeah, they have all that.
That's what I'm saying. But it's the lobbying against, with people that have their cards places and their casinos. That's the issue. It's just like. I'm sure Vegas wasn't happy when they legalized gambling in all these states.
Right.
People had to go to, either Atlantic City or Vegas to go gamble there.
Yeah.
So,
right. I want to get into some comedy here. I need some funny stories at the tracks. You guys have been to the tracks for years. You've got to have some hilarious stories of either, bad beats. Or, I mean,
those aren't funny, Dan.
Well, they're funny to everybody else listening. So,
bad beat. No.
I mean, how about the horse that? I mean, you see it on the highlights all the time. He hasn't acted up, and the horse is about ready to cross the line, and the jockey gets thrown, and the guy had him in a pick six.
He was the sole winner. 798,000. That guy was going to win if the horse just ran straight.
Yeah,
you see that horse at Gulfstream, Lou. Remember that horse was breaking through to win the pick six, and it looked like he kind of misstepped, and the jock's foot, came out, and he went on. And obviously, you got to finish the race with the jockey on the horse's back.
The jockey was Nate Hubbard.
Oh my!
Oh yeah, God.
Oh my goodness, $800,000 the guy lost just because.
Yeah, because the horse basically didn't finish, and then in that type of bet, you got to be the sole winner.
Yeah,
that's what was the whole purpose.
It was
he was going to be the only winner. He was going to collect the whole thing, and I mean, we've all had nightmare stories. I mean, I'll do one, and then I'll give you my pick for the race. How I'm going to bet.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
I was alive in a pick 5, and this is something that happens a lot when you're better. And it was between $12,000 and $16,000. I had 7 out of 10 horses, right? So you're at the point where do you want to head or do you just want to let it go? Because why would you waste money on another horse when you could have, you would have played him to begin with? But it all depends on budget, how much, you have to bet. So I sort of said, God, I don't know. So I wound up betting 2 of the 3 horses, right? I bet $50 on each. because the way the condition of the race was, the one horse was like 1 for 42. He broke out a decent thing. And I go, I'll take these other horses who were big odds. You know, one was 18-1 and one was 38-1. So I bet 50 because I want to collect the big money. And what do you know? The horse I didn't bet winded up winning.
So you had 7 of the 10 to
9. We had 9 of the 10.
Yeah, then you added the 2. So you ended up with 9 of the 10.
Didn't bet this other horse, and the other horse won. Now you got to remember the whole bet was only $108. So it wasn't like I put 1,000 into it. I bet $108. I was going to win between 12 and 16,000. That's why one of the rules is until the race is official, nobody should ever say, you got it. It's guaranteed. This horse looks like a winner because strange things happen.
Of course.
You know, and unfortunately, you know, I wind up losing $208. Now, the horse that won never won another race again. Never. He ran 26 more times, never won. But you know what? As my good friend Brett tells me, that's horse racing. And I'm not the only one that's ever gone through that. But you get to a point where you got to, do you want to hedge or do you not want to? You know, it's just, you know, that's, and then here, I'll just give you my horse. One of the things I have is I love Mystic Dan in that race for 2 reasons. His workout back on April 20th was phenomenal. Phenomenal. He's won over the track. And if you watch his Arkansas Derby race, he had more trouble than Dan driving in San Francisco on the freeway. He basically had to check 3 times, ran a great third. I think this race is going to be a horse from behind. And I'm probably going to bet trifectas, not supers, because the trifectas you can basically bet for 50-cent wagers, so I can go more. But I'm going to key Sierra, number 2 and 3, first, second, and third with 6 other horses. So basically what that means, I'm going to play the 2 and the 3 on top with like the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with like the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mm-hmm. Right? It's going to be an $81 bet. But if the 2 or 3 finish first, second, or third with my other 6 horses, I'm going to hit the try.
Yep.
Now, for the whole first 2 weeks, I have said I am throwing out the favorite, Fierceness, because I have not seen him like Terry said, back-to-back things. You know, I just think his last race was almost too easy, and he's not going to have that easy of a time. So, you know, that's how I'm betting. I think, you know, Dan, you got to take a stand. And you know what? There's never a wrong stand in the Derby. That's what makes horse racing so good. Because remember, Dan, the public's wrong 65 to 70% of the time. And there's money, and all 5 of us can have a different opinion. And that's what makes horse racing so beautiful. My nightmare story, and that's the way I'm betting. Terry, how about you? Or Steve, how about you? Give me one of your nightmare stories. Since Dan wants to make
nightmare
story. We already did the nightmare story when he.
Oh, that's right. You left the horse out. I'm sorry.
I'll give you this funny one because. So how
about you, Terry? Anything?
Terry, I'm going to go with the king. So anyhow, for years I would take Terry's dad to the track because Terry was coaching football, and I learned so much because he had spent 65 years. I mean, when I was taking him to the track, he was in his late 80s, early 90s, and he had just a wealth of knowledge because he owned horses up, like I said, up at Long Acres and the whole deal. And he was an encyclopedia of knowledge, and he was funny, and I had fun, and we had fun with him. So he's got his table, which he had at the turf club for a long time, up on the top, easy to get to the windows, perfect, right on the finish line, the whole deal. And of course, the Kentucky Derby, we go, and it's sold out up there at the Turf Club at Golden Gate with their lousy buffet and the whole deal, whatever. So the table behind us is a couple of ladies, and they're kind of, they're large, and they're kind of don't know what they're doing. And they keep bumping into the king, his dad, Don, in his seat, and he's getting uncomfortable. And of course, Terry knows he's getting pissed off.
Yeah, my dad didn't think anybody should sit around him. He wanted that whole table to himself. Yeah. So when he's getting in his 80s, he get always mad. Yeah. So
but these ladies they didn't do a good job with their hygiene. I could smell them from 8 feet away. It was not good. And
Okay,
I
let's
don't even
move
know
on with
why
that.
they were at the it was Kentucky Derby, so they go. So it gets about 45 minutes before the race, and they kind of stand up and they go, "Hey, you guys know what you're looking like. You're doing. Give us a tip on the Kentucky Derby." And so the king goes, "Give me a few minutes, so I'll give it to you." So they go up and make a bet on the Golden Gate Fields race, whatever. So he goes through and he goes, he goes, "I got one for him. He's going to give him the worst horse he can find because he's already upset with them from bumping into him, the whole deal." So he takes like a 20-1 shot or maybe 18-1
It was
shot.
only 6-1. Okay.
It was no, you think it was? I know it's
Yeah.
a big, but he gives these ladies the horse, and the race goes on, and that horse wins. And they went 20 across the board. It was Orb, and when he wins, and of course they're so happy. They think that he did them a great favor. They're trying to hug him and kiss him, and he's like, "Please, stay away," And it was so funny. I was just beside myself laughing that I thought the king tried to pull one over on him, and they ended up walking
And
out.
of course, he didn't bet Orb, right?
Oh no, he said he got no chance. Yeah.
It's
He's
amazing how
5-1
you give
now.
somebody a horse. You're excited for them, but you're sort of pissed off because you didn't bet a nickel on him.
Well,
Yeah.
he did it on purpose because they were agitating him. As soon as I told Terry that story, it was hilarious. But
Here's one
we
for
had
again.
so many great memories.
In this 80s, this is before we had simulcast wagering. We'd go up to Tahoe, and if you remember the movie The Sting,
Of course.
when you go in the sports book, that's how they would do horse racing. They would read it over the wire, and they give you the call of the race. So there was no TV. You couldn't see the race when you're betting horses, And so my brother, it was I think it was Santa Anita, and I was up in Vegas. I was up in Tahoe, and we were at the sports book, and I looked up and I said, "Hey, wait, my brother's got one of his horses." And I knew the horse. This is before cell phones too, so there was no communication. You had to have a telephone, which I don't have a telephone in sports book. And he's running a horse named Captain Double was the name of his horse. And I go, this horse, he hasn't run for like 6 months. And I saw that he was going to be like 50-1. And so we're going out to lunch and all that. I go, I'll put $2 to win. And I just go out to lunch, just thinking like, there's no chance. He didn't tell me anything, gave me nothing. So I come back after lunch, and they used to post the numbers on the board.
Yeah, of course.
Big red number, first, second, and third. And I'm looking up there, and it's the red number was the win. As I'm walking in, I can see, I go, oh no. And I see the ones by Captain Double, and he paid $108 to win. I had $2 on the horse.
Crazy.
And later on, I call and I go, "Why didn't you say something to me?" He's like, "Oh, I knew he'd run well." And well, the main thing is that his owner, my brother said he's ready to go, and I don't know what he bet. All I know is he got a Rolls Royce out of the win. That's all I can tell you.
Wow.
That's how much he bet. So
wow,
yeah.
That's something. Hey, by the way, Jim Everett the Great, he said the Lakers would win. He just said he's glad he didn't take the bet. They just lost to the Nuggets 108-106. They're done.
Oh, they covered though.
Yeah. They did cover. Hey, I did want to give my the horse. So,
hey, before you do real quick, Steve, I just want to get this super chat up there. $4.99, Gus GAFU. Thank you for that. Let's go Giants. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate it. We'll be back talking Giants baseball tomorrow night after their game against Boston. But thank you, Gus. All right, Steve, go ahead.
No, I'm going to, a lot of times I will go with jockeys and trainer combinations. And I think Brad Cox has been doing well. Fabian is one of my favorites. So I'm going to go with Catching Freedom. Just because of the connection with the trainer and the jock.
And I'm sorry, you said Catching Freedom?
Catching Freedom, yeah. He's been improving every race, and he's definitely. I mean, at 8-1, he's definitely one of the horses that everyone figures is one of the horses that could be right there. And he's. I'm pretty sure he does have a win at Churchill Downs as well as a 2-year-old. And they say he's been. Says looks great. Yep, and they say he looks great on the track. So during the morning workout. So
I bet some of the, with my TVG account, I've gone on and made some bets and had some winners. They're lucky. I don't know what I'm really doing, but I kind of.
Here you go. I got it for you. Here's the 4.
Dan, for you, take 5 of the 20. Bet a 5-horse exacta box. It costs you $20. Mm-hmm. Go by names, whatever, or the horses we give you. Like I've given you the 2 and the 3. You just heard the 4. Come up with 2 others by you and say, I want to do an exacta dollar box, 2, 3, 4, and your other 2 ones that Terry will give you. Boom, there's your bet. Cost you 20. And let me tell you something. If you hit it, you maybe the low end, maybe 60, 80 bucks. High end with some of these other high numbers, $400 or $500.
You got the bet right. Here's the bet, right? Let's take a stand. You do the exacta box, or you want to go try it's Sierra Leone, Mystic Dan, Anna Marie, Catching Freedom. They're the 4.
Okay.
We're calling it right now.
Those 4.
And we're saying Fierceness is gonna. I'm saying Fierceness gets caught in the speed duel, fades down
2,
the
3,
stretch.
4, 7.
There you go.
That'll cost you 12, Dan. Take the other 8. And get that horrible thing you used to eat when you first did your show.
Oh, the completes?
Oh, my God. The completes.
There you have it.
Back.
Oh, by the way, Dan, I also wanted to thank you for your description of your quarter horse dying in Connecticut. It's been the highlight of the show there.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah,
that was sad, man. That was tough.
Yeah, that was important, I think.
You got Lou and Terry on, you're talking about that quarter horse with his intestines tied up. Okay.
And if it's raining, I really like Mystic Dan. If it's raining,
Mystic Dan. If it rains, okay.
I like him in the fast track, but I really like him in the mud.
Okay, so now I know that my brother has gone to the tracks and he's taken his grandkids, and they bet based on the name of the. What was the one that said? Which one was it that? Who was it that you went with? Was it Bella?
Well, there's a lot of horses named Bella. I have our oldest granddaughter is named Bella, and there's just so many. Right, Lou? I mean, Bella is a name that's common in so many horses, and there's been some really cute ones. But no, it was so much fun bringing the grandkids because we would go down to the paddock, and they'd be close to the horses. And then sometimes even watching from the rail right there at Golden Gate Fields, it's to see how powerful these animals are is to the average person who goes to the races for the first time, they could fall in love with it because it's a great sport. And, a lot of people don't realize what great and physically, mentally tough athletes these jockeys are.
Oh, shake their hands. That's all you got to do.
Athletes.
You shake a jockey's hands, your hands are hurting because they're all steel. Terry and Steve, one of my big highlights growing up is the infield at Bay Meadows. So you used to be able to go to the infield at Bay Meadows and you could get right up to the turf. Right. And unlike the dirt, when the horses are coming home or starting on the turf, the thumping they do, it's the most amazing thing. And you can hear the jockeys, saying, come on, and move. When they come down, that was the greatest thing about Bay Meadows because I'd never been to a racetrack where you could go to the infield and you get right up to the rail and you watch them on the turf and the thumping. I mean, I was hooked right there and there.
There's nothing like it. Yeah, Dan, these are 118-pound guys steering, 1,100, 1,200-pound horses.
40 miles an hour.
Going about between 32 and 35 miles an hour.
Wow. Yeah,
and going through these guys have to have guts. They got to be, they got to be able to make a move and not, and they have to, go through holes. Like you got to make snap decisions. They're incredible.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, I've seen them get thrown. That's a very dangerous sport.
It's not fun. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, going that fast and as
It's
little
like
as
car.
those guys are.
It's like kart racing. You know. I mean,
Yeah. Man, it's.
you've seen the wheel, like those guys behind the wheel, the cams, guys, racing and stuff, and how fast they're going, and how they have to make moves. I mean, it's the same with jockeys. At least one thing horse racing does now, they're putting jockey cams on the GoPros and stuff on jockeys.
Yeah, I used to freak out when my kids were riding.
Hey, I was going to ask Lou, who are some of your go-to jocks that you really like down in Southern California?
Well, I was really big. So I was very fortunate where we had great success with Pratt. Yeah. I have had no success when he's gone to the East Coast. I think, he dominated the turf out here. I've had some good success the last couple of weeks with Kyle Frey, who's a Golden Gate boy.
Yeah.
He's now down at Santa Anita. I think on the turf, really on the West Coast, we had two outstanding jockeys. Umberto and Pratt were literally, I think, our A jockeys. JJ was maybe like a B.
Another Golden Gate guy.
But they were the two main turf. Now, it's weird. Now, when you go to the dirt, I was never a huge fan of Pratt on the dirt. He seemed to me, it just was, it's different surface, different everything. I mean, I think, JJ Hernandez reminds me of an old NorCal Roberto Gonzalez, where when he's on the lead, he would never get caught, So, that's how, out here it's weird, because a lot of our great jockeys have had such success down in LA, which is great. Franceca's done really well. JJ, Kyle Frey.
How about Dettori?
There you go.
And
he's a legend.
I know. And from Woodbine, there's Canadian Kimura. I think he's doing pretty. He's starting to make a name for
I just think it's and that what makes too is when you get Del Mar on the big days. I love seeing Johnny V when he comes out from the East Coast.
Oh yeah.
And I think but when you get Ortiz. Those guys come out and they wind up running 7 times and have 5 wins in 2 seconds. They don't take them out off a day from the East Coast to ride the West Coast unless they're loaded.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's
Did you ever,
and again, one of the things I wanted to point out, a lot of people don't know is after horse racing, people wonder what do the horses do? They now have great things, aftercare of horses. They have there's a group called Little Red Feather that they have a thing called CARF, where they take horses and they give the horses that are, basically done, that aren't going to go to stud or something that might be 8 or 9 years old. They now go to either they're now given to maybe camps for the blind for kids, or they then become show horses where they learn how to jump. A lot of people think, oh my God, these horses are done at 8. And that, we're just going to take them out in the pasture and, take care of them. That's not how it is. There's a great aftercare program. That
on the East Coast,
get taken care of very well. And I always advise people, if you ever want to see something spectacular, when you go to the Derby, go a couple days early. Like Thursday, I'm going to Calumet Farm, where you get to see horses that are treated better than humans.
Yeah, I know.
It's amazing. I always recommend, because sometimes horse racing people only see one thing. If they've never gone to a race live, you go up to a horse after the race, they're sweating, their eyes are bloodshot, and they look at you, I gave everything I could.
Right.
And that's what really makes horse racing. And that's, something we're going to miss with Golden Gate closing. But, go to a farm, see how wonderful these things are, especially in Keeneland, which is like the mecca of horse racing.
Right.
For the farms, that's where they are. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah.
Lou, did you ever have use Garrett Gomez?
We never had him, but I was a big fan of him. But Dan, so you didn't know, he's talking about a jockey that unfortunately these guys go through a lot of pressure. The jockeys, and he was a gentleman that had a little problem with the white up the nose. And he also had problems where these guys make, Dan, when a jockey wins a race, he gets 10% of the winning purse. So in like the Kentucky Derby itself, the winning purse is $5 million. So that's what the race is. They're running for $5 million. The winning owner gets 60% or $3 million. So that means that jockey for that 2 minutes and 2 seconds race just made $300,000. So, these guys work every day, but there's also a lot of pressure. They have families to take care of. You have great success, but like a good baseball player, you then go in slumps. Like, you told me about the horse you bet, and you were probably going, God, why did that jockey wait so long and he didn't get up? There's a big difference between winning for a jockey and running second, third, fourth, fifth, or even sixth. You only make money when you finish in the top 5. I mean, you get a sort of a rider's fee. You make $25 to ride the race. But the other thing, too, is they're trying their best because you know what happens if a jockey falls down? They don't have medical. Everything's out of their own pocket.
Wow.
So it's something that, they do whatever they can because, their ability is amazing. You're going to win $300,000 for 2 minutes of work. When you want when you're asking about these jockeys flying out, if they're in the West Coast, the owner's got to fly in first class. You got to get them accommodations. You got to get them transportation, the works to get to the track. So, they want to win just as much as all of us. But what makes horse racing unique is I didn't know Terry. I didn't know Steve. And all of a sudden, out of 20 horses, we gave you one horse that's going to get bet. And, we didn't even talk about the favorite. Now, if the favorite wins, the payoff is going to be really low. But if he doesn't, with our 4 horses, we got a chance to make 200 to 1 on our money. And all we need is 2 of those 4 to come in.
Wow.
It's that simple.
See how simple this is?
Yeah. Now here's a question for probably Lou or Terry. I have no idea on this. Kyle, one of our regulars, says, maybe I missed this. If you're racing professionally, how much are you investing into a horse annually, and what's it take to do it?
Well, I can tell you from the Golden Gate perspective, then Lou can talk about Southern, because it's cheaper to do it at Golden Gate because the purses are lower, and so they don't charge as much. But with a vet bill and your training bill, it's going to cost you between to have a horse, to run a horse. That's what he's asking about, correct?
Right.
Up here north, it's between about $2,700 to $3,200 a month.
Wow.
To keep them in the stalls and keep them going.
Yeah, Dan, I can speak from mine. So our trainer charges $125, but it does not include medical. So if the horse has a problem, that's money we got to take care of our pocket. Bob Baffert, who is the #1 trainer right now in the United States, he charges $275
a day.
What's that, a day?
A day?
A day.
$275?
He's the highest paid one. He's more than Todd Pletcher by 25. Now, Dan, you got to remember that includes feed, the horse working out, the upkeep, everything. I mean, from
those guys only take major horses though, too, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got $1 million babies.
They're taking horses that I saw Baffert have they paid $1.3 million for their horse, and it hadn't won yet. It was his 5th race, and he came in 5th out of 6 horses. So, people have money to burn when they're going with Baffert because you're paying that kind of money for a horse.
Well, there was a horse, I don't know if you guys remember, I think it was 20 years now, that they paid $13 million as a weanling.
Oh, God.
And he basically was called, is it the Green Onion? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. And the horse never won, but they insured him for $25 million when they got him, right? And then went to breed the horse. He was sterile.
Oh, God.
Never won a race. So, and it's amazing. We talked about California Chrome. The way they bred him, it was sort of a mistake. They never figured they had anything. They said the horse was there. Let's take a chance, And California Chrome itself is sort of an exception to the rule. He's been a great sire.
Yeah.
But when you get some of these other champions like Zenyatta, I think's had 6 babies and only one is actually won.
Oh, really?
So it's sort of a hit and miss. And that's what makes horse racing so special. You can have all 5 of us. We throw in we go to a sale. We buy a horse for $20,000, right? It takes $20,000 a year. We're in 60 and we win the biggest race. The horse wins $20 million. Where you get these sheiks that spend $20 million and they get a horse and the horse can't win. It's just, it's amazing because you can look, Dan, the 2-horse Sierra Leone, they paid $2.1 million for the $2.3 million for the horse. 2.3. Wow. There's one horse in here. Where was it? Anna Marie. They paid $40,000 for. 2.3 million for one. The other one they paid 40, and they're both running in the Derby. And that's why the dreams happen. It doesn't matter what you spend, and I think horse racing is a lot of luck. I mean, look at Seabiscuit. If you watch that movie, that's sort of how it is. The horse.
Yeah. Who was Secretariat really was hands down the best horse of all time? Was there any horse that could compete with Secretariat, you think?
Well, not time-wise, there hasn't been.
He ran the fastest Kentucky Derby.
And Belmont.
But there's a trick question that goes around a lot, Dan. You'll like this. So I was in Vegas, and the guy goes, "I'll give anybody $1,000," and you got to listen to the question. Who ran the second fastest Kentucky Derby ever?
Sham.
Correct. And most people don't think that because he ran second in the race.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Oh.
The question is who ran the second fastest Kentucky Derby? Not who ran the fastest time and won, but it was Sham. So, I'm in Vegas and I go, oh, that's easy. And everyone, of course, is guessing other horses, and they go, no, and I go, all right. I go, can I just get my money now? The guy goes, you haven't said it. I said it was Sham. And he goes, correct. There I was in Vegas, got a free $2,000. It lasted the night.
Hey, Dan, I got to get going. So,
yeah.
Lou, nice meeting you.
No, my pleasure. Hope to see you soon.
Good luck with everything.
Hey, you guys ought to get together. Are you guys going to take any visits to the track before it closes, or are you guys done with the?
Well, I still have a horse running, so I go. Yeah.
At Golden Gate. So you got a horse running for another 6 weeks, 5 weeks?
Yeah. At least at Golden Gate, yeah.
How many more races does he have? 2 or 3 in him? It's
a 3-year-old filly. I'd say he got one more.
Just
and
one
then
more.
Steve, I don't know if you're going to be betting Churchill tomorrow, but we have a horse in the feature called How About Them Apples?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that horse. Yeah, we're going to be betting it. We're betting it no matter what now.
Yeah, so I'm going to single him tomorrow in my pick 4 and pick 5.
Okay.
How about them apples?
I remember that because that's from Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
How about that? Can you read that? Yeah. So.
Wow. Well,
all right,
yeah,
Dan.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, Steve. And we'll hopefully winner chicken dinner this Saturday.
Yeah.
From
2, 3, 4, 7 was what we came up with.
Yeah, it took us a while, but we finally gave everybody the numbers. Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 7.
Correct.
2, 3, 4, 7.
I can remember 2, 3, 4, 7. Okay.
Got it. All right.
Well, thanks, Steve. Have a good one. All right. So, I was hoping to get into some. I don't know. We probably won't go too much longer, a few more minutes, but maybe we'll have to have you on some other time and talk about some De La Salle football. Maybe closer to football season.
Yeah, I'll come on for sure if you want to talk about that.
Terry, I got a question about De La Salle.
Yes.
2 questions. Since I'm actually on the, as I call it, the Bay Area, the West Coast Bay Area. How much is it true? Because I admire De La Salle, everything. First of all, I love the movie that was about it when the street came to end. But that you guys basically recruit kids when they're in 6th grade, and you already know you got all the superstars. So when they come to you, they're already talented.
Yeah, that's been the rumor since 1984 when we started winning.
Correct.
We won our first championship in '82, and that was our first team that won our section up here. And then
And I don't think anything's wrong with it.
In '84 and '85, they started saying that we started winning out of the blue because when Bob Ladouceur took over, De La Salle had never been a 500 team. In his first year, they're 500, and then he's 7-3, and then he slowly just kept building it. And no one was running the option, the veer at that time, and he was a master at teaching it. And the whole thing was, I used to always have someone, if we were recruiting these kids, we were pretty bad recruits because if everyone ever just looked at our kids, yeah, we've had some good athletes. There's no doubt about it. But one of the things about our team was, how are they doing that? They're always so undersized. And during the winning streak, we were always so small compared to all these other big teams and schools that we were playing. But it was at that time, it was a year-round training, which nobody was doing.
Nobody was doing.
It was our weight training year-round. And
you talked about the option. I mean, now that's all Sarah does.
Right.
Them and Colorman have adapted that.
But we ran the true veer option, which is a triple option, which nobody ran, and it's hard to defend when you can't simulate it on your own team because you don't practice
Notre Dame
it.
When they play Navy. It's the one time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and of course we had some great, and then of course when your school does well, you're going to attract athletes.
Yeah, of course.
There's no doubt about it. But
you just coached defense, right, Terry?
Well, when I started out, I coached wide receivers too. And
okay.
Then eventually moved to.
But I know a lot of these guys are.
And I coached special teams the whole time.
I know a lot of these guys in high school go, two-way players and stuff. But
right.
Who was the greatest player that you actually coached? That I know you had DJ Williams there. You had
DJ Williams. You kind of look at DJ Williams was definitely a man-child.
Yeah.
I mean, even John Madden thought he could go pro after high school. I mean, he was just a freak of nature. Great kid, great family.
Yeah, Amani
Toomer is definitely, that was probably our first great football player in the program was Amani Toomer. We had Aaron Taylor, as a lineman that won the Lombardi Trophy from Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, yeah.
And Derek Landry, who played 5-7 years, went to in the league, played 5-7 years. He was player of the year from Cal High Sports as an offensive lineman and defensive lineman. He personally was killing Long Beach Poly in that 2001 game.
Yeah, so Maurice Drew.
Maurice Drew is a running back. And Maurice is coaching now. His son's going to be a sophomore. He's coaching in the program, and he's got his son.
At De La Salle?
Oh, that's cool. Son's a freshman this year. It's going to be a sophomore. So,
how did you not get Najee Harris to come? Was he ever? Did you guys try and get Najee, or
we never tried? If everyone knew Bob Louse, he doesn't try to. No one tried to get anybody. All those rumors, start. I remember when Justin Allenbaugh was playing for us. He always told the story of someone said, I know you guys recruit. What'd they give you? And he go, they gave me a car. And he had like this 20-year-old car just screwing around. Guys used to play around with that. Nobody, I mean, come on. It was De La Salle. If someone had something on us, you don't think someone would have could have gone to the section and said, we've got this. This is what they did. It was always that. It's rumors. And that's the way it's always been. I never recruited anybody in my life. Bob never. What happened was alumni and stuff, they had good experiences at De La Salle. They tell their friends, they tell their families. People, word of mouth, if you have a good experience and you talk to other people. So Dan, your son goes to De La Salle and he has a great experience. And now you're friends with someone's kid's got an 8th grader and you go, you should, and he's a good football player. You're going to go to De La Salle, aren't you? But your son's a good, your kid's a good football player. You're talking to your friend. Is that recruiting? If you think that's recruiting, then that probably happened. families would talk our school
Right.
and our program up. I mean,
Now, did Amani Toomer win a Super Bowl with the Giants?
He did.
he did. Yes.
And Doug Bryan won one with the
Doug
Niners.
Bryan won one, and TJ Ward won one.
TJ
Yeah,
Ward.
TJ.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know what, Terry? It's funny because when I was going to school, they said the same thing about Bishop O'Dowd.
In
How is
basketball.
Steve Phelps getting all these guys
Yeah, in
where his
basketball.
brother can't get anybody at SI?
Yeah.
But Bishop O'Dowd was like, so what they did is they got the athletes, not the star players, and they've also played in a different league. Like remember the rumor was De La Salle, why don't they come out and join the WCAL, right? But it's like, wait a minute. It's completely different, like teams like SI would never play a preseason game.
Well, we tried. We actually tried to get in the WCL as just for football, and they wouldn't do it.
But like, see, you guys would play Pauley down there. People don't realize, and now how good LA sports was.
Yeah.
Polytech, all these guys. It was just a different level. Same thing in basketball. But you know what? Nobody would ever talk about it. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed your movie, but everyone was just jealous. It was like you guys always had the best looking girl. How are you getting the best looking girl? You must be doing something. Are you paying her on the side? People were just jealous because they couldn't figure it out.
Now, I got a question about that movie. I know some of that stuff was just made up for
Of course,
Hollywood.
it's Hollywood.
But was that did that happen where when you went down to Poly that it was over 100 degrees or whatever? And
No, it was just super humid.
oh, okay.
It was
But
super humid,
were you guys like
and we
really
couldn't
struggling?
we couldn't get them to give us any ice. So
Yeah.
we had to send out our assistant basketball coach to go to liquor stores and all that and buy ice for us and all that.
Seriously, that's
Yeah, seriously.
so. Now that game, I mean, were guys really getting exhausted? Heat
Yes.
running out.
Yes.
So that part
There was a couple guys. We had a doctor there, and he did administer a couple IVs.
wow.
Yeah.
And this is high school football IVs. Like, come on.
Oh well, but that's because they're so dehydrated. He's
Yeah,
one-
no, I know. I
yeah,
agree.
Yeah,
Wow.
they gave. Yeah, talk about the horse gave everything. There was a game. That was why that game was so inspiring. Now, is because every player, I mean, just gave everything they had. It was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
Probably my
Yeah.
favorite sport experience of all time was that game. Yeah.
Wow. Now you guys that was the year the streak had been broken, right? You had
No.
oh, wasn't
That's the movie did that, but that was 2001.
Okay.
That game was 2001. We didn't get the streak broken until 2004.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
kind of how they Hollywoodized the film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And didn't you guys play some school in Louisiana or something too?
We played Evangel Christian. Yeah.
During the streak, right?
2003. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that was
That
one of
was
the
the
last.
first ESPN game on high school football.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And was that where Manning went?
No, Manning went to He went to Archbishop Newman, I think it was called.
Oh, okay.
But that's where they shot the film. They shot the film at Manning's school.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was something. So, yeah. So you guys beat well, that's something. So, yeah. So I went to Clayton Valley, which is now a charter school, which is kind of, it's like, yeah, everything's changed. They didn't even have lights when I went there.
Because you're old, Dan.
Yeah, I know that whole thing. They went charter. What was that to try to compete with De La Salle? Do you think, or
I think they wanted to improve their sports program. Sure, not just football; it's all sports.
Yeah. But well, that's interesting. Yeah. So I know you and Steve. Steve, my brother, started at De La Salle as head coach there at what 23, 24 years old, something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was 23.
Yeah. So that's a long history, but yeah, we'll definitely have you back on when it gets closer to football season. Because right now, I mean, here we are in April. It's like it's kind of
Derby
football
week. You did the right thing. It's Derby
Yeah,
week.
it's Derby
Bring
week,
up
yeah.
spring. That's right.
No Giants game, no complaining.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, Dan, we have another 3 weeks before the schedule release for football, so that can wait.
Yeah. So that's right. And the NFL does own the calendar, though. I mean, they have figured a way to dominate the
And
calendar.
then, Dan, you might as well tell Terry the good news. I heard your associate actually won the dinner at Westlake Joe's.
There he is. There he is. He picked the right score yesterday. He picked the Giants to win 3-2.
I'm 50 on that, trying to pick the score.
You know,
and it wasn't just a guess. It wasn't just a guess.
So
Yeah, I had
Terry,
some
don't
logic
know if
behind
you
it.
know, what they do is Marty Lurie on the weekends has people write in, and you have to pick the final score of the Giant game. 90% of the people say Giants 5-0 or whatever. And like I always, since I know the Giants aren't that good, I always bet the other way. So I never
do
win.
too. I do too.
You got to remember and then finally somebody I know wins. He picked 3-2 Giants yesterday.
He's got dinner for two at Original Joe's, man.
Yeah, how about that?
The one in San Francisco, which one?
Yeah.
I think it could be either one. I think it's going to be North Beach, though, right? I think.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and I had it the week before. I had picked. Who were they playing, Eric?
Arizona. Was it?
Yeah, it was Arizona, and I had the score 3-1, Arizona, and the Giants bring in some schmuck to pitch the ninth, and I'm like, doggone it! As soon as he came in, I knew he was going to give up a run, and he did, and then Arizona scored one more in the ninth, and it was a final of 4-2, I think, and I had picked 3-1. I had the score right all the way into the ninth inning, and I was the only one because like Lou said, 90% of the people pick the Giants. Well, the best odds to win is to pick the other team.
Yep.
But I shouldn't say that because everybody started picking the Pirates last Sunday.
But I saw the way the Giants are pitching and the way that the Pirates are hitting. I took a gamble. 3-2.
There you go, man. 3-2.
But I'll have Dan. I think we'll wait because supposedly I get to pick the date. So I just got to wait for Marty to contact me and then we'll figure out if you come down, man. We'll maybe do an afternoon game and then go have dinner at Original Joe's.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds really good.
All right. Well, we'll pick up football season during
Let's do that. Let's do that. All right. So we're going to head out of here. And I just want to thank my guest, Lou Marston, for joining us, and Terry Edson, my brother Steve, and Eric was behind the scenes, kind of running everything, making sure everything went smoothly as always.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for that. And tomorrow night we'll be back on for the Giants post-game show. Probably, what do you want to go, Eric? You think about 8 is probably a good time?
That sounds good.
The game will end about 6:37, but we get a better viewing at about 8 because most people are used to it.
Yeah, 8 o'clock will work.
Yeah. So join us tomorrow night. Giants, Red Sox. Giants try to get to 500 again. 14-15 in the first month of the season at 500. That'll be a pretty good accomplishment for a team that can't hit.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you got Logan Webb.
Let's just see how they come back from this road trip.
Yeah, I'm
Philadelphia with a wraparound.
Yeah, this is a big road trip. You don't want to, even though it's still very, very early, you just don't want to be chasing 500. You don't want to come back and be 3-7 on a trip, and all of a sudden you're 5 games back of 500.
Yeah, you know what they always say: you can't win the pennant in April, but you can sure lose it.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining.
Terry, good luck this weekend, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, guys, remember Kentucky Derby, the 2, the 3, and the 4, and the 7.
And don't forget about Lou's horse tomorrow.
Yes, that's right. Apple pie or something. What was it? What was the name of it?
How about them apples? But Lou, wait, he's not answered. Lou, that's not from the movie Good Will Hunting?
When we bought it and it was already named that, but I'm pretty sure it was because
that's that line by Matt Damon.
Yeah, of course.
Do you like when he's in the bar after he's in the bar and they're making fun of Ben Affleck and all that, and then afterwards he goes he gets that girl's which we call his phone number.
Yeah, he goes, do you like fruit or something?
Do you like apples? He
Yeah.
goes, I got her number. How about them
How about them
apples?
apples?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh,
yeah.
we had one question in here. Let me go back to it. Somebody asked a question. I think it was Mark Graves for one of you guys. Little people still complain on here. Even let's see, where was it? Let me find Mark's comment because it was about question. I think. Hold on here. I've got to go
This
all
one
the
right
way
here.
back.
Got it.
Yeah, that's it. Is Kendall Jackson still in horse racing?
So, I'm sorry, Terry, you want to answer this or?
I don't, Kendall Jackson, like the winery?
Yeah, so he died 5 years ago, Mr.
Okay.
Jackson. So what made him famous is when Zenyatta was going for it, he was the West Coast horse. And there was another filly. What was the filly's name that beat the boys, won the Preakness?
Winning Colors?
No, another one, more recent. He won the Kentucky Oaks by 23 lengths, and Mr. Jackson paid $10 million for the horse. This is when the Derby that year was in the rain when the 50-1 shot won.
Mind That Bird?
Mind That Bird.
Oh, yeah.
Then Mind That Bird
yeah.
ran against the filly in the Preakness, and Mind That Bird ran second, and the filly won the Preakness.
Oh, I remember the name of
No,
that
not
horse.
Cavanier, but that's a good call. Cavanier lost the Kentucky Derby, Mark, but that's a good guess. Cavanier lost when Chris McCarron ran second. That was owned by the Walters, by the way,
God,
who actually owned part of Trader Vic's. And
wasn't how long ago was that? Wasn't Secret Oath? No, who was it? Rachel something?
Rachel Alexander.
Rachel Alexander, yeah.
So she beat the boys, and then she was too scared to run in the Breeders' Cup against Zenyatta. But they still sponsor a couple races, but Kendall Jackson, the gentleman himself, unfortunately passed away. But, there's another guy that had the money, bought the horse, tried something different. And, horse racing was big. Rachel Alexander was huge for the sport.
Right.
At that time, the two best horses, one was on the East Coast, a filly against the boys, and a horse on the West Coast, Zenyatta against the boys. And the biggest race in Europe is the Arctic Triomphe, was another filly that beat the boys. So that was the year where you had three champions, and they were all fillies.
You're the girl.
All 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Crazy.
All right. So the advice again, guys, everybody who wants to bet on the Derby, take the 2, 3, 4, and 7. That's and box them or what?
Yeah.
Box 'em.
Exact the box.
Okay.
Exact the box. That's our call.
Costs
So
$12.
and it's a $12 bet. And
it's a $1 bet, but there's 12 combinations.
okay.
That's what makes it $12.
If it comes in 3-4, you take out Sarah Leone 3-4-7, you're going to make some money.
Wow.
I'll tell you that right now.
Probably 500 to 1.
Yeah.
And if it rains, you're taking Mystic Dan to
I'm
win?
saying that's my call. Yeah, I'm saying if it rains,
Okay.
Mystic Dan.
Mystic Dan to win. So you might have two bets going.
He
maybe.
might, yeah. If the track's muddy, I'm saying not
Muddy.
so much rain, but if the track's muddy or sloppy, my call is Mystic Dan.
Okay.
And
There
I'll
you
just,
go.
I'll just blame you if it doesn't work because of your
Okay.
name. So
Well, hopefully people who are watching take that advice and it comes true, because then we'll have helped everybody make a little money.
That's
And,
right.
That'll be good. So, all right, guys, thanks very much for joining us. We'll have to do it again. Maybe if there is, it's doubtful, but if there is somebody going for the Triple Crown, we'll have you on just for the excitement of a Triple Crown. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen this year.
Never know. You never know.
Yeah. And then, of course, we'll have you back on talking football. We'll talk some high school. Are you doing much with college football? And I know you got coaches that sometimes come and recruit you guys, and you're talking.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, that's our head coach does all that. Justin Allenbaugh does most of that work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not around them then.
Yeah,
They go to him, which justifiably so. Yeah.
Right. Well, good deal. Anyway, thanks again, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow night. Giants, Red Sox post game. Catch us about 8:00 tomorrow night. Until then, have a great night.
Woo!
Okay.